In this video, I'll show you how to add 175 horsepower from a simple cam swap. What do you think? Real? Clickbait BS? A little bit of both? In this video, I'm going to show you the magic cam timing that allows you to get 175 horsepower from a simple cam swap. And why? That's total BS. It's actually not the camshaft. Magic or otherwise, it's actually the combination we tested it on. I'm also going to show you some other cams from mild to wild. We even installed a cam that was too big for our 408 stroker. And I'm going to finish up with my favorite test. It's the rec port versus cathedral port camshaft. What happens when we put a rec port cam in our cathedral port stroker? Does it ruin the power? By now you should already know the answer. But let's get to our test motor and then check out the results. Our test motor was a 408 stroker, meaning it included a 6-liter iron truck block, a 4-inch stroker crank, and 6/125 rods, both from K1, matched with a set of Forge JE flat top pistons. The combination was topped with a set of Airflow Research 245 full CNC heads and a fast LSX RT intake and a 102mm throttle body. Now all this stuff was dialed in with a set of fast injectors and a Holley HP management system. We also ran all of this with a set of 1 7/8" long tube headers feeding collector extensions. They help with the torque production. Now the combination was run with all the different camshafts, starting with the 5.3-liter LM7 cam. And then we went to a variety of different other cams. We'll cover all of that in the results. So let's hear this baby run and get to those results. Okay, what is this magic cam timing that will give me 175 horsepower with just a cam swap? We're going to go over that. And believe me, it's actually not clickbait. And it is, because it really is possible to get 175 horsepower. We'll show you how I did it. So this is the 408 stroker that we covered in the build-up section. And it was, it's a 6-liter block with the 4-inch stroker crank basically. And it already had good heads and a good intake manifold on it. And what we did was start out with the factory LM7 cam. So equipped with that stock 5.3 or early 6.0 cam, our 408 stroker made 449 horsepower and 522 foot-pounds of torque. So more torque than horsepower, that should give you an idea that something's going on right now. So now let's take a look and see what happens when we put our magic camshaft in there. This is a camshaft that's only available through special sorcerers. Oh, it's not magic. Okay, so this is the power gain offered by this camshaft. And this camshaft was from Crane. I'll go ahead and put the specs up here so you guys know exactly what it is and everybody can get this magic camshaft. So it's a 600 lift, both intake and exhaust, 240, 248 degrees of duration at 114 degree lobe separation angle. So really nothing magic there. And as we'll see, we'll go into the next step. We'll show you lots of other cams that do the same thing. So equipped with that Crane cam, the power output of the 408 jumped to 625 horsepower, which gives us a gain peak to peak of 176 horsepower. So there you go. It is possible to get 175 horsepower, actually 176, from a simple cam swap. But the reason that we were able to do this is not because magic cam timing is even possible or a reality. The reason that we're able to get this is because we made the combination so that it needed that camshaft, and then we handicapped it by putting the stock cam in it. Think about it this way. And what I mean by that is you cannot get these kind of gains from like a 5.3. If you have a 5.3 and somebody tells you you're going to get 175 horsepower from a cam swap, it's not going to happen. It only happened because this combination needed that much camshaft. So again, let's take a look at an extreme example. If we run a stock cam in a NASCAR motor, we might lose 300 or 400 horsepower, meaning a cam swap in that motor is going to pick up 300 or 400 horsepower, so it's a magic cam. No, it's just that that camshaft needs that motor. Let's go to another extreme. Think about a pro stock motor. If we run a stock cam like this in a pro stock motor, we might lose 600 or 700 horsepower or even more. And then if we take it to the farthest extreme, if we put a stock camshaft in a top fuel motor, we might lose 6,000 or 7,000 horsepower. So a cam swap is worth 6,000 or 7,000 horsepower. And that's all we did here. We just skewed the test motor so that it really wanted the camshaft. So we were able to get 175 horsepower in real numbers from the cam swap. As a matter of fact, if you do a comparison, if some unscrupulous person doing a YouTube video were to do this comparison and say, hey, look, we picked up 220 horsepower, 250 horsepower. If you measure this, if we ran the motor with the stock cam all the way out to 6,500, where it was making no power, you might pick up 250 or even 300 horsepower if you measure it at that RPM. So that's what people will do. I'm not telling you that this is a real thing. I mean, it did change the power this much, but only because we picked a specific test motor that was going to show the kind of gain that we wanted to, so that we can impress all of you with the 175 horsepower camshaft. So now that we know what's true and what's not true, let's take a look at some other examples that made exactly the same kind of power, and also some smaller cams that showed different kinds of power gains on the same combination. Now that we've taken a look behind the curtain over there at the Real Wizard of Oz, let's show you that it's not just that magic crane cam that's able to add the 175 horsepower. Other cams that have similar lift and duration and LSA numbers, because there are no magic valve events. No matter who it comes from, whether it's Brian Tooley or Texas Speed or Comp Cams or Cam Ocean or whatever, whoever the cam comes from, if it has similar specs, it's going to do similar things. So this is with our stock LM7 cam on the 408. Now let's take a look at a comp cam. This is a check the specs on this one. This is a comp 289 LRR cam. This is a 239, 247, so within 1 degree either side of the crane cam, 114 LSA. It actually had slightly more lift. It had 624 lift. So equipped with that cam, the 408 produced, hey, big surprise, 621 horsepower and 575 foot-pounds of torque. So again, it did the same thing. I mean, if you want to put that in perspective compared to the crane cam, we can take a look at that one. Crane cam actually offered a little bit more power, maybe a little bit better match there. But here's an interesting thing I want you to take a look at. So this is Comp's rec port cam. I mean cathedral port cam. So, and this is a cathedral port headed deal. This had the airflow research heads on it. I just want to verify what size they were. This had airflow 245 heads on it. More head than this combination actually could use, but it worked out well. But here's what I want you to take a look at. These are this is a cathedral port cam. There's a cathedral port head. So obviously that's the ideal combination. Let's see what happens when we install the rec port cam, which can't work because these are cathedral port heads. The rec port cam, even though this is a cathedral port motor, made more power than the cathedral port cam did. And the rec port cam, let's take a look at the specs on that. It's almost identical. It just has more exhaust duration, which is kind of typical of a rec port cam versus a cathedral port cam. This one is same 624 lift, same 114 degree LSA, same intake duration of 239, and but it has a 255 degree exhaust duration. So it has more exhaust duration, which tends to help these things kind of carry out at the top a little bit better. But on this combination, the rec port cam, as you can see, made more power than the cathedral port cam, even though this was a cathedral port motor. So guess what? The other thing is, and I've tested this also, if we were to run the same test between these two cams on this combination, but with a rec port head, the same thing would happen. The rec port cam would carry out a little bit farther and a little bit better and probably make a little bit more peak power than the cathedral port cam. Now the cathedral port cam, as we see, made a little bit more power down low. That's what happens, and it happens regardless of what head you put on there. So you guys that keep telling me about all these magic rec port cams and cathedral port cams, they do the same thing. And this is a perfect indication. Now let's take a look at various other cams that we ran, milder combinations that we also ran on this 408, and we'll show you how it just steps up power when you go up in wilder cam time. Now we're going to take a look at various camshafts of different sizes and how they stepped up in power compared to the factory cam before we got all the way up to the Magic Cam area. And another thing I want to point out from if you were looking at the stuff previously, we were comparing the rec port versus the cathedral port cam, and there was a little bit of a difference in power. The reality is that if I grabbed either one of those cams and stuck it in a motor and had you go drive it around, even went to the track, you wouldn't know which cam was in there. Effectively, on the grand scale of things, they're the same cam and they do the same thing. They offer the same power curve. One was a little bit better than the other up at the very top, but you would only know that because I just pointed it out in a direct back-to-back test. In the car, I doubt that you'd be able to tell the difference or even see the difference at a drag strip, but I know that drag racers will always want that little bit more, and that's why I do this testing. So now let's take a look. So this is our 408 with the stock LM7 cam, and here's what happened when we installed a small, like, you know, what you might think of as like a truck cam. So this is another crane cam. It is 500 lift, so it's a small cam, 206, 214 duration, and 114 degree lobe separation angle. And take a look at the power gains we got from such a small cam. And again, that's because this is a big motor and it wants camshaft. It's begging for more cam timing. And even when we give it a little bit more, which is not a big step up from the 190 duration or 191 duration of the factory cam up to 206, that's not a big jump. But the power output jumped all the way to 515 horsepower. So that's pretty good. And the peak torque was up also to 556 foot-pounds. It's pretty good for a little 206 cam. I mean, that's an impressive deal. Now let's take a look at, see, the next step up in camshaft that we have is our my famous Crane 224 cam that I like. See, another big gain. Again, it just shows that this thing wants more cam timing. And on the Crane 224 cam, you see we lost a little bit of power down low compared to the 206. It was more like what the factory cam was. But the peak power output was up quite a bit. 584 horsepower. The peak torque was actually up just a little bit too. It just happened a little bit later. That was up to 566 foot-pounds of torque. Now we stepped up one more time to, and that, by the way, I'll put the cam specs up so you guys can take a look and see what that 224 cam is. Now we stepped up to a 232 cam. As you can see, there wasn't a big change in power from the 232 going up from the 224 cam. And the specs on our 232 cam, 600 lift, 232, 236 on a 114. I think, judging by what we saw with the rec port versus the cathedral port cam, this 232 cam probably could have benefited from even more exhaust duration. And then our final step up was obviously with our 240 cam and the combination like that. So that was a big change there. We did lose power down low. We're starting at a point now where the cam's big enough that we're starting to trade. So it's picking up power at the top past 4,400, but kind of making it softer down low. Now here's an interesting test. We also ran a cam that turned out to be too big. So we installed a cam that had 246 degrees of intake duration and basically gained no power at the top with that cam. All we did was lose power down low. We picked up a little bit in the middle. It had decent torque. Peak torque is up to 575 foot-pounds, but you see at the top, it just gained no power. And the specs on that cam, on our 246 cam, it was 624 lift, 246, 256 duration, and a 114 LSA. So all you cam guys, you can tell me what's wrong with that cam, why it didn't work on this 408. But it shows you that there is an optimum cam timing kind of for a specific application, and obviously we reached that on this. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about these different cams? Is any of this magic? We got our 175 horse. Let's get to our conclusion. Okay guys, what did you think about the 175 horsepower cam swap? Good, bad, indifferent? Here's the reality. 175 horsepower gain from a simple cam swap obviously is possible. I mean, we did it. But you have to have the right combination. That's the only way it works. No one is going to run a stock 5.3 LM7 cam on a 408 stroker. There's just no reason to. You always want something bigger. I mean, take a look at the results of that little 206 cam on our 408. That would be a much better choice and a much better starting point. But that begs the question, can you get 175 horsepower from a cam swap on, say, a stock 5.3? I don't think so. I mean, we've gained 100 horsepower from a cam swap on an otherwise stock 5.3, but 175 horsepower gain, the only way that would be possible is if it was on a high boost 5.3 and you ran high boost on the stock cam and then you ran high boost on a bigger cam, which it's definitely going to need, then that might be possible. But on an NA 5.3, there's no magic cam timing. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. I'll keep doing these videos. Thanks for the support.